It happened 23 minutes into what Adam Schiff thought was going to be his finest hour, his moment of triumph, his chance to finally interrogate President Trump on live television in front of 78 million Americans. To ask the questions Trump had been dodging for 8 years. To force answers about Russia, about collusion, about all those suspicious contacts and secret meetings and compromising information. The moment where Adam Schiff, intelligence expert, defender of democracy, champion of truth, would finally hold Donald Trump accountable. He'd been preparing for weeks, writing questions designed to corner the president. Questions with no good answers. Questions that would make Trump either admit wrongdoing or look guilty by refusing to answer. The kind of questions prosecutors ask when they already know the truth and just want the defendant to confess. He had his opening question ready, practiced it 50 times. It was perfect. Accused Trump of concealing Russia contacts while pretending to ask a question. Classic courtroom tactic. Make the accusation sound like curiosity. What Adam Schiff didn't know, what he had no way of knowing because he'd spent 8 years believing his lies were permanently safe, was that Trump had just declassified everything. Every classified briefing Schiff had attended from 2017 to 2024. Every intelligence assessment about Trump-Russia connections, every FBI report, every CIA analysis, every document that showed what Schiff had actually been told in those secret briefings versus what he told the American public afterward. All of it declassified, approved for public release, compiled into a presentation, ready to display on the massive screens flanking the presidential podium. And now, 23 minutes into the press conference, Trump was holding up the first document. The most important one. The one that would destroy everything. Classified Intelligence, Brief House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Gang of 8. Briefing, March 15, 2017, declassified, January 15, 2025. The text was projected on screens 10 feet tall. Every camera in the room could see it. Every person watching at home could read it. FBI Counterintelligence Assessment. Investigation into potential coordination between Trump campaign and Russian government. Status: no evidence of coordination or conspiracy found to date. Multiple contacts between campaign associates and Russian nationals confirmed, but contacts alone do not indicate conspiracy. Investigations continuing, but no credible intelligence suggests coordination at this time. The date was clear, March 15, 2017. The signature page showed everyone who'd attended the briefing, including Adam Schiff, then ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. And Adam Schiff's face, his face that had perfected the look of grave concern, of serious intelligence expert, of man burdened by terrible secrets he couldn't share, was doing something faces shouldn't do on television, cycling through emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, realization, horror, panic. The look of a man watching his entire career, his entire reputation, his entire political identity implode in real time. Because he knew what was coming next, knew what Trump was about to show everyone, knew that the lie he'd told the day after that briefing, the lie he'd repeated 227 times over the next 2 years, was about to be exposed to the entire nation. The lie that had started everything. The Russia hoax, the investigations, the impeachments, the special counsel. 8 years of conspiracy theories and destroyed reputations, and a nation torn apart. All based on Adam Schiff saying he'd seen evidence that the classified briefings explicitly said didn't exist. And now everyone was about to see the proof. But to understand how we got to this moment, to this frozen second where a single declassified document became the bullet that killed a career built on lies, we need to rewind. Not far. Just 90 minutes. Back to when Adam Schiff still thought he was the hunter instead of the prey. 2 weeks earlier, the White House had made an unusual announcement. President Trump would be holding a special press conference as part of a transparency initiative. The topic? Addressing years of misinformation about Russian collusion and restoring trust in government intelligence. The press secretary had been specific. This wouldn't be a normal press conference. The president wanted to address the lingering questions about Russia, the investigations, the impeachments, and he wanted to do it by inviting his biggest critics to ask questions directly. The president has specifically invited Senator Adam Schiff as a special guest questioner, the press secretary announced. Senator Schiff has been one of the most vocal critics regarding Russia matters. He'll have a seat in the front row and first question privileges. President Trump believes in transparency and accountability, and he's willing to answer tough questions from those who've investigated him. The media went absolutely insane. Trump was finally going to face Schiff, the man who'd been his chief antagonist for 8 years, the man who'd led 2 impeachment inquiries, the man who'd spent countless hours on cable news warning America about Trump's connections to Russia. CNN ran with "Trump finally faces his nemesis." MSNBC did a special countdown. The reckoning. Schiff gets his chance. Even Fox News, usually favorable to Trump, couldn't hide their excitement about the confrontation. Adam Schiff held his own press conference to announce he was accepting the invitation. He stood at a podium in the Senate, cameras everywhere, looking like a prosecutor preparing for the trial of his career. I want to thank President Trump for this invitation. The American people deserve answers. They deserve truth. They deserve accountability. I have questions the president has been avoiding for 8 years. Questions about Russian interference, about contacts between his campaign and Russian agents, about his finances and potential compromises, about intelligence community assessments he's dismissed, about January 6th and potential foreign influence. He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. It's time for transparency. It's time for truth. I look forward to this conversation. The Democratic base loved it. Finally, Schiff would get to question Trump directly. No Republican protectors. No empathetic moderators. Just Schiff and Trump face to face. Questions and answers. Truth versus lies. Behind the scenes, Schiff's staff was preparing like it was the Super Bowl. They compiled questions, researched answers Trump might give, prepared follow-ups, designed traps. Every question was crafted to either get a damaging admission or make Trump look evasive and guilty. What none of them knew was that in a secure facility at FBI headquarters, Director Kash Patel had spent 6 months compiling something else, an 847-page dossier on Adam Schiff. Every classified briefing he'd attended, every intelligence assessment he'd seen, every time he'd gone on television afterward and said something that contradicted what he'd been told, every phone call to reporters that preceded a leak of classified information, every coordination with FBI officials who were later fired for misconduct, every fabrication, every distortion, every lie. All of it documented, all of it cross-referenced, all of it verified by multiple sources, and all of it declassified the week before the press conference. Properly, legally, through the appropriate channels, ready to be shown to the public. The trap was set. Schiff just didn't know he was walking into it. The day of the press conference arrived, 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time. The White House East Room was packed beyond capacity. Every major network was there. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, international press, digital media. The room was so full that reporters were standing 3 deep against the walls. At the front of the room was the presidential podium with the seal. Behind it, 2 massive screens. The White House had announced they were for transparency purposes, to display any documents or evidence the president referenced. And, in the front row, in a special seat with a small placard reading, Senator Adam Schiff, guest questioner, sat the man himself. He looked confident, ready. He adjusted his tie, reviewed his notes, whispered to an aide sitting behind him. He had the expression of someone about to do something historic, something important, something that would define his legacy. He thought he was about to become the man who finally held Trump accountable on live television. He had no idea he was about to become a cautionary tale about what happens when you spend 8 years lying about classified information and someone finally declassifies it. President Trump entered the East Room at exactly 2:00 p.m. The press corps stood. He walked to the podium, shook a few hands, acknowledged people in the crowd. He looked relaxed, almost casual. Not his usual rally energy, something quieter, more controlled. Like someone who knows the punchline to a very long joke. He arranged some papers on the podium, placed a remote control next to them, glanced at the screens to make sure they were working. Then he looked out at the packed room and began. Thank you all for being here. We've got a lot to cover today, so let's get started. This press conference is about transparency, about truth, about showing the American people what actually happened over the past 8 years versus what they were told happened. He paused. For 8 years, I've been accused of colluding with Russia. I've been investigated, impeached twice, called a traitor, a Putin puppet, an agent of a foreign power. My family has been harassed, my businesses targeted, my supporters demonized, all because certain people told America that I was working with Russia to undermine our democracy. And for 8 years, certain people with access to classified intelligence, people with security clearances, people in positions of trust, told the American public they'd seen evidence, direct evidence, more than circumstantial evidence, compelling evidence that I was compromised. He looked directly at Schiff. They told you to trust them. They couldn't show you the evidence because it was classified, secret, sensitive. But trust them, they'd seen it in classified briefings. They knew. Trump gestured to the screens behind him. Well, today we're going to look at what they actually saw. Because I've declassified it. All of it. Every classified briefing. Every intelligence assessment. Every FBI report about Trump-Russia connections. All declassified. All approved for public release. All available online right now for anyone to verify. These screens will show you actual classified documents from actual intelligence briefings. You'll see what certain members of Congress were actually told versus what they told you. He picked up the remote, and we're going to start with the person who's been most vocal about this. Senator Schiff, as promised, you have the first question. The cameras swung to Schiff. This was his moment. He stood up, microphone passed to him by a White House aide. Every camera in the room focused on his face. He looked confident. This was what he'd prepared for. The opening salvo. The question that would set the tone. Thank you, Mr. President. My question is straightforward. Why did you and members of your campaign have so many documented contacts with Russian officials and Russian intelligence operatives during the 2016 election? And why did you and your team repeatedly lie about those contacts and try to conceal them from investigators. It was a perfect prosecutor's question, assumed facts, not in evidence, accused Trump of wrongdoing while pretending to just ask for clarification, forced him to either confess or look guilty by hedging. The room waited for Trump to do what he always did: deny, attack, deflect, go on a tangent about witch hunts and fake news. Instead, he smiled. "Great question, Senator. Perfect question, actually, because it lets me show everyone something very important." He pressed the remote. The screens lit up. What appeared was a document. Official classified markings at the top. Declassification stamp across it. Classified Intelligence, Brief House, Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Gang of 8. Briefing, March 15, 2017. Subject: FBI Counterintelligence Investigation. Trump Campaign, Declassified, January 15, 2025. The text was clearly visible. FBI Counterintelligence Assessment. Investigation into potential coordination between Trump campaign and Russian government has been ongoing since July 2016. Multiple contacts between campaign associates and Russian nationals have been confirmed and are being investigated. However, to date, investigators have found no evidence of coordination or conspiracy between the campaign and the Russian government. Contacts alone do not indicate conspiracy or coordination. FBI will continue investigating and will update committee as new information becomes available. But current assessment is that no credible intelligence supports allegations of campaign coordination with Russian government. Trump let it sit on the screen for a moment. Let everyone read it. Let the words sink in. Then he read it aloud slowly, clearly, every word emphasized. No evidence of coordination or conspiracy. That's what the FBI told the Gang of 8 briefing, which included you, Senator Schiff, on March 15, 2017. You attended this briefing. In fact, let me show you the attendance log. A new document appeared. Signature page, list of attendees. Adam Schiff's signature clearly visible. You were there. You saw this assessment. You signed the log, confirming you'd been briefed. Trump paused. And then, the very next day, March 16, 2017, you went on Meet the Press. Want to see what you said? A video clip played. Adam Schiff on MSNBC. Chuck Todd asking him a question. Schiff responding with his signature grave expression. I have seen more than circumstantial evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Trump paused the video. More than circumstantial. You said that on national television the day after the FBI told you explicitly that they had found no evidence of coordination or conspiracy. He looked at Schiff. So my question to you, Senator, is this. Were you lying to Chuck Todd? Or were you lying in the classified briefing? Because those two things can't both be true. The room had gone completely silent. Every eye was on Schiff. Every camera zoomed in on his face. His expression had changed. The confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked like a man who'd just realized he'd walked into a trap he couldn't escape. He opened his mouth to respond. Mr. President, I think you're taking my words out of context. Trump held up a hand. Context? Let me show you some more context. The screen changed. A timeline appeared. Dates down the left side. Events on the right. March 15, 2017. Gang of 8 briefing. FBI reports no evidence of coordination. March 16, 2017. Schiff on MSNBC. More than circumstantial evidence of collusion. March 20, 2017. Schiff on CNN. Evidence that is not circumstantial. and is very much worthy of investigation. May 15, 2017. Schiff on MSNBC. I think there is evidence that is not circumstantial. July 21, 2017. Schiff on CNN. Plenty of evidence of collusion. September 18, 2017. Schiff on MSNBC. I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence. The timeline continued. Date after date, appearance after appearance, different shows, same claim. I've seen evidence. Trump let it scroll. The list was long. You went on television 227 times over the next 2 years claiming you'd seen evidence of collusion. We counted. My staff went through every interview, every cable news hit, every Sunday show appearance. 219 times. On you said some variation of, I've seen evidence. He pressed the remote again. A supercut began playing. Schiff on different networks, different dates, saying the same thing over and over. I've seen direct evidence. More than circumstantial evidence. Evidence in plain sight. Plenty of evidence of collusion. Abundant evidence. In the corner of the screen, a counter ticked up showing which appearance it was. 47 of 227, 89 of 227, 140 of 227. It was devastating. His own words, his own face, over and over for nearly a minute. The same claim repeated in dozens of different settings. When it finished, Trump looked at Schiff. 227 times. But the actual classified briefings, the ones you attended, the ones you signed for, said the opposite. They said, no evidence was found. So, which is it, Senator? Were you lying to the intelligence community? Or were you lying to the American people? Schiff tried to respond. His voice had lost its earlier confidence. The intelligence picture evolved over time. Trump cut him off. Oh, it evolved. Let's look at how it evolved. More documents appeared. A sequence. Month by month. May 2017. Gang of 8. Briefing. FBI update. No new evidence of coordination between Trump campaign and Russian government. Carter Page. FISA surveillance has not revealed evidence of conspiracy. George Papadopoulos interviews provided no evidence of coordination. Investigations ongoing. Schiff on CNN 3 days later. The evidence of collusion is hiding in plain sight. July 2017. Briefing. FBI. Multiple interviews with campaign associates completed. Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort, Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, all questioned. No evidence of conspiracy to date. Individual charges possible for unrelated matters, but no coordination, conspiracy found. Schiff on MSNBC 2 days later. I can't go into specifics, but I can tell you that I have seen direct evidence of collusion. September 2017. Briefing, Steele dossier. Assessment. FBI has determined primary source was not credible. Key allegations remain unverified. Likelihood that several allegations are fabricated. Dossier should not be considered reliable intelligence. Schiff's response? Continued citing Steele dossier publicly as credible evidence. Trump walked through these methodically, one briefing after another, each one saying no evidence found. Each one followed by Schiff going on television to say the opposite. Every single briefing told you the same thing. No evidence, no coordination, no conspiracy. And every single time, you walked out of that secure room and told America you'd seen evidence. He put down the remote. That's not evolving intelligence, Senator. That's systematic lying. Trump picked up a different document. And then there are your phone calls. See, when classified information kept leaking to the media, The FBI investigated. They do that. They track leaks. And they got phone records, including yours. A new timeline appeared. This one was different, more precise. December 12, 2016, 4:47 p.m. Phone call from Adam Schiff to CNN, producer John Bonifield. 15 minutes. December 13, 2016, CNN story. Intel chiefs presented Trump with claims of Russian efforts to compromise him. December 18, 2016, 3:22 p.m. Phone call from Adam Schiff to NY Times reporter Adam Goldman. 23 minutes. December 20th, 2016, NY Times story. British intelligence shared evidence of Russian interference with U.S. officials. January 10, 2017, 2:07 p.m. Phone call from Adam Schiff to MSNBC producer. 19 minutes. 19. January 11, 2017. MSNBC story with more classified details. The pattern repeated over and over. Schiff's phone call to a reporter or producer. Within 24 to 48 hours, a story with classified information. The timeline showed 43 instances over 2 years. Trump let everyone absorb this. You didn't just lie about what you saw in classified briefings. You leaked what you saw. You took classified information you were legally obligated to protect, and gave it to friendly reporters. Then, you went on TV to confirm the stories you'd leaked. He looked directly at Schiff. That's not oversight, Senator. That's propaganda. That's using your security clearance as a political weapon. And it's a felony. Schiff stood up again. Mr. President, these characterizations are completely... Characterizations? These are phone records from an FBI investigation into leaks of classified information. Your phone number, calling reporters, followed within hours by stories containing classified details from briefings you attended. That's not characterization. That's documentation. Trump pressed the remote. More phone records appeared. Want me to show all 43? Or do you get the point? Schiff sat down. He knew where this was going, and he knew he couldn't stop it. Trump shifted to a new topic, but his tone remained calm, conversational, almost like he was just walking through facts, which made it somehow more devastating than if he'd been yelling. Let's talk about Ukraine. September 2019, the phone call, the whistleblower, the impeachment. You remember that, right, Senator? Schiff's jaw tightened. This was his worst scandal, the one he'd never fully explained. You opened the impeachment inquiry hearing in September 2019. You were the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and you read what you claimed was the essence of my phone call with President Zelensky. Let's watch that. Video played. Schiff at the hearing, speaking with dramatic flair. The essence of what the president communicates is this. We've been very good to your country. Very good. No other country has done as much as we have. But you know what? I don't see much reciprocity here. I hear what you want. I have a favor I want from you, though. And I'm going to say this only 7 times, so you better listen good. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand? Lots of it. On this and on that. Trump stopped the video. That's what you said in an impeachment inquiry, in Congress, on the record, while the world was watching. There's one small problem with it. That's not what I said, not remotely. Let me show you the actual transcript. The real transcript appeared on screen. Highlighted sections showed the actual conversation. Trump asking Zelensky to look into corruption, mentioning Biden, but nothing like what Schiff had read. No 7 times, no make-up dirt, no threats. Nothing even close to Schiff's theatrical performance. You completely fabricated dialogue, made up quotes, put words in my mouth that I never said. During an impeachment hearing, And when Republicans objected, you said it was parody. Trump's voice rose slightly. Parody? In an impeachment inquiry? You're reading complete fiction into the congressional record while millions of people watching think it's real. And you call it parody? He pulled out polling data. 63% of people who saw your performance thought those were my actual words. Because you presented it that way. You didn't say, this is parody. You said, the essence of what the president communicates. You made people believe that was real. That's not parody, Senator. That's fraud. That's fabricating evidence in an impeachment proceeding. The room was stunned. Even reporters who'd covered this story at the time were seeing it differently now. The contrast between Schiff's theatrical reading and the actual transcript was stark when displayed side by side. Trump wasn't finished. And let's talk about how this impeachment started. The whistleblower, you remember? Someone filed a complaint about my Ukraine call, and you went on television and said you'd had no prior contact with this person. You said, quote, "We have not spoken directly with the whistleblower." Video of Schiff saying exactly that. That was a lie. Your staff met with the whistleblower 3 times before the complaint was filed. They helped him find a lawyer. They helped him craft the complaint. They coordinated the entire thing. And then you went on TV and lied about it. Phone logs appeared. August 12, 2019, 3:14 p.m. Whistleblower calls Schiff's staff director. 43 minutes. August 14, 2019. In-person meeting at Schiff's Capitol Hill office. August 28, 2019. Second meeting with Schiff's chief counsel. Whistleblower complaint filed. September 9, 2019. Schiff claims no contact. September 17, 2019. You lied. Got caught. Had to issue a weak correction through your spokesman. But the damage was done. Impeachment was launched based on a complaint your office helped create, while you lied to America about your involvement. Trump picked up another document. This one looked newer, more recent. October 2020. Hunter Biden's laptop. The New York Post breaks the story. Emails showing potential corruption, foreign business dealings, possible crimes. A major story 3 weeks before a presidential election. And you, Senator Schiff, did something remarkable. Something that might be your biggest lie of all. New classified document appeared. FBI briefing, Senate Intelligence Committee, October 2020. Hunter Biden laptop. Device confirmed to be authentic laptop belonging to Hunter Biden. FBI has had possession since December 2019. Forensic analysis confirms emails and documents are genuine. No evidence of Russian involvement in laptop's existence or contents. Attendance sheet showed Schiff had been briefed. Trump read it aloud. Let every word land. The FBI told you the laptop was real, told you the emails were authentic, told you it had nothing to do with Russia. You were briefed on this. And then what did you do? Video compilation played. Schiff on different networks over a 3-day period. October 15, 2020. CNN. We know that this whole smear on Joe Biden comes from the Kremlin. October 17, 2020. MSNBC. This is classic Russian disinformation. October 19, 2020. CNN. All the hallmarks of a Russian information operation. You went on television and called it Russian disinformation, even though the FBI had just told you it was real, even though you'd seen the briefing confirming it was authentic. You lied 3 weeks before an election to protect a candidate, using your position and your clearance to spread disinformation while calling the truth disinformation. Trump pulled out more documents, but it gets even better. The letter, remember the letter? 51 former intelligence officials signing a letter saying the laptop story had all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. The letter appeared on screen, signatures visible. Brennan, Clapper, Hayden, and 48 others. This letter gave Twitter and Facebook the excuse they needed to censor the story, gave media the excuse to ignore it, gave Biden the excuse to dismiss it in the debate, all based on 51 former intelligence officials saying it looked like a Russian operation. Trump pressed the remote. Emails appeared, declassified emails from Schiff's staff director to multiple former intelligence officials. Subject: urgent. Need letter on laptop story. Date: October 16, 2020. The email detailed talking points, suggested language, coordination on timing and release. More emails showed the back and forth. Schiff's staff coordinating with former officials, providing them with the framing, telling them how to position it. You orchestrated the whole thing, got 51 former intelligence officials to sign a letter calling real evidence Russian disinformation. They provided the credibility. Media ran with it. Social media censored the story, all based on a lie you knew was a lie because you'd been briefed that it was real. Trump's voice was harder now. The laptop was real. The emails were real. You knew it. FBI told you. And you suppressed it anyway. To influence an election, using your security clearance and your position to spread lies while calling the truth disinformation. That's not protecting national security, Senator. That's election interference. Trump stepped back from the podium, took a breath. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, more intense. Senator Schiff, I want to ask you a question. The same question you've been asking me for 8 years. Long pause. Every camera in the room on Schiff's face. He looked smaller now, diminished. The confident prosecutor from an hour ago was gone. How many times did you lie to the American people? The silence was absolute. Was it the 227 times you claimed you'd seen evidence of collusion that your own classified briefings said didn't exist? Was it the 43 times you leaked classified information to reporters, then went on TV to confirm your own leaks? Was it when you fabricated my Ukraine call transcript and read complete fiction into the congressional record during an impeachment hearing? Was it when you lied about coordinating with the whistleblower? Was it when you called a real laptop Russian disinformation after being briefed it was authentic? Was it when you organized 51 intelligence officials to lie to the American people 3 weeks before an election? Trump's voice was rising now, not shouting, but the intensity building with each question. How many times, Senator? How many times did you use your security clearance as a weapon? How many times did you leak classified information for political gain? How many times did you look into cameras and lie about what you'd been told in secret briefings? He gestured to the screens filled with documents. You spent 8 years calling me a liar, a traitor, a Russian agent. You impeached me twice. You ran investigations designed to destroy me. You went on television almost every single day telling America I was compromised, that I was a threat to democracy, that I was Putin's puppet. And the entire time, you were the one lying. Provably, documentedly, systematically. Trump leaned on the podium. These aren't theories. These aren't partisan attacks. These are declassified government documents. Your signature on briefing logs. Phone records from FBI investigations. Video of your own statements contradicted by the actual classified intelligence. Timelines showing your leaks. Emails showing your coordination. The evidence isn't debatable. It's not open to interpretation. You lied. Hundreds of times, maybe thousands. You used your position to leak classified information and spread propaganda. You fabricated evidence. You suppressed the truth, all while wrapping yourself in the flag and claiming to defend democracy. He straightened up. So I'm going to ask you one more time, in front of the American people, in front of these cameras, with all the evidence on display, how many times did you lie, Senator Schiff? The room was dead silent. 78 million people watching at home. Every eye on Adam Schiff. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Because what could he say? Every document was real. Every timeline was accurate. Every contradiction was undeniable. His own signature on briefings that said no evidence. His own words on television saying the opposite. His own phone records showing leaks. His own coordination with the whistleblower. His own lies about the laptop. All of it documented. All of it declassified. All of it undeniable. Trump waited. Let the silence stretch. Let America see that Schiff had no answer. Finally, Trump spoke again. Quieter now. Almost sad. You don't have an answer, because the answer is hundreds of times, maybe thousands. So many you've probably lost count. You spent 8 years as the face of the Russia investigation. The intelligence expert Americans were supposed to trust. The man who'd seen the evidence we couldn't see. And you were lying. The whole time. Using classified information as both a sword and a shield. Leaking what helped your narrative. Hiding what hurt it. Making up what didn't exist. Trump gathered his documents. The American people deserved better. They deserved the truth. They deserved someone who'd use their security clearance to protect them, not manipulate them. Instead, they got you. The remaining 37 minutes of the press conference were almost anticlimactic. Other reporters tried to ask questions. Trump answered some, but everyone knew the story had already been written. The press conference was over the moment Schiff couldn't answer the question. Schiff sat frozen in his front row seat. He didn't ask another question, didn't try to defend himself, didn't leave. That would look even worse, like he was running away. He just sat there while other reporters asked Trump about policy and legislation and things that suddenly seemed very unimportant compared to what had just happened. Trump kept circling back. Couldn't help himself. When a CNN reporter asked about FBI reforms, Trump said, "Well, as Senator Schiff now knows from the documents I showed today, the FBI was actually telling the truth the whole time. They kept saying no evidence. Schiff kept lying." When an MSNBC reporter asked about intelligence community morale, Trump gestured to the screen, still showing documents. Unlike some people in this room, the intelligence community was honest. They gave accurate briefings, wrote accurate assessments. It's not their fault certain members of Congress lied about what they were told. Each time he mentioned it, the cameras would cut to Schiff, still sitting there, face expressionless. The confident prosecutor from the beginning of the press conference had been replaced by a man who looked like he wanted to disappear. When Trump finally called the press conference to a close at 3:43 p.m., Schiff stood up immediately. Didn't wait for the room to clear. Didn't try to spin the story with reporters. Just pushed through the crowd toward the exit, his aide running interference, creating a barrier between him and the cameras. Reporters swarmed him anyway. "Senator Schiff, do you dispute any of the documents the president showed? Did you leak classified information to reporters? Why did you say you saw evidence when the briefing said there was no evidence? Will you resign from the Intelligence Committee? Do you have a response to the accusations?" Schiff said nothing. Kept walking. pushed through the doors and disappeared. Trump stayed in the East Room for another 15 minutes, shook hands with reporters, answered a few more questions. He looked relaxed, satisfied, like someone who'd just finished a job that needed doing, because he had. Within 2 hours, the internet exploded. Before Schiff had even left the White House grounds, clips were everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit. Every platform simultaneously. The "how many times did you lie" question hit 93 million views in the first 90 minutes. The footage of Schiff's face when Trump showed the first classified document got 81 million views. The side-by-side comparison of Schiff's statements versus the actual briefings hit 127 million. The supercut of Schiff's 227 appearances claiming evidence reached 76 million views. People watched it over and over, counted along with the ticker, shared it with commentary. He said this 227 times, and the briefings said the opposite, all 227 times. The comparison of Schiff's fabricated Ukraine transcript versus the real one got 98 million views. Split screen showing his theatrical performance next to Trump's actual words. The contrast was devastating. Conservative media went supernova. Schiff destroyed by declassified documents. 8 years of lies exposed in 1 hour. The liar finally faces the evidence. How Adam Schiff fooled America for 8 years. They played the clips on repeat. Every network, every show, every podcast. The timeline of briefings versus TV appearances. The phone records showing leaks. The fabricated transcript. The laptop lies. All of it. Over and over. With experts analyzing each revelation. Liberal media tried to defend him, but struggled badly. MSNBC led with "Trump weaponizes declassification to attack political enemy." CNN went with questions raised about selective document release. But even their own panels couldn't ignore the evidence. "Look, I think Trump's motives are political," one CNN analyst said. "But these documents, Schiff's signature is on briefings that say no evidence. And he went on our network the next day and said he'd seen evidence. How do we explain that?" Another MSNBC host tried to provide context. Intelligence assessments evolve. What seems like no evidence at one point might become evidence later as more information comes in. "But he didn't say it evolved," the guest interrupted. "He said he'd seen evidence. Direct evidence. More than circumstantial. And the briefing he just attended said the FBI had found no evidence. That's not evolution. That's contradiction." The best defense liberal media could muster was that the documents might be taken out of context, or that more information is needed. It was weak, everyone knew it, because the documents had dates, signatures, official seals, declassification stamps. They weren't ambiguous. They said what they said. Social media was absolutely brutal. Schiff lied trended one worldwide within 15 minutes. 27 lies hit 2. Declassified evidence was par 4. Even liberal accounts that had defended Schiff for years were struggling. "I defended this man for 8 years. He told us he'd seen evidence. The briefings say he saw the opposite. I feel betrayed." Those documents are real. His signature is on them. The timeline is undeniable. How do you explain this? "I hate Trump, but I can't defend this. Schiff lied to us repeatedly using classified information we couldn't verify. That's not resistance. That's manipulation. The fabricated transcript thing alone should end his career. He made up quotes during an impeachment. That's insane. The New York Post, which had broken the Hunter Biden laptop story, ran a special edition. Vindicated: how Schiff and 51 Intel officials lied to suppress our story. They detailed how Schiff's lies had led to them being censored on social media. By midnight, every major news organization had the story as their lead. Schiff faces questions after Trump declassifies intelligence briefings. Timeline shows Schiff's statements contradicted classified assessments. Phone records link Schiff to classified leaks. And Adam Schiff, who'd gone into the press conference thinking he was finally going to hold Trump accountable, was trending as the biggest political story in years, for all the wrong reasons. The next week was a political earthquake. Ethics complaints started filing within hours. By the end of the first week, 27 separate complaints had been filed with the Senate Ethics Committee about Schiff's handling of classified information and his public statements contradicting classified briefings. The Department of Justice announced it was reviewing the FBI's leak investigation for potential Espionage Act violations. They were careful to note this wasn't a guarantee of prosecution, just a review of the evidence. But the political damage was done. More damaging was what happened in the Senate itself. Republican senators called for Schiff to be removed from the Intelligence Committee. At first, it seemed like typical partisan posturing, but then Democratic senators started joining the call. Not all of them, not even most, but enough. Enough that it became clear this wasn't going to be a party-line vote. The Senate voted on a resolution to remove Schiff from the Intelligence Committee, pending investigation into allegations of mishandling classified information and misleading the public. The vote was 67-33. 17 Democrats voted with all Republicans to strip Schiff of his committee seat. When that many of your own party vote against you, you're done. It means they're not defending you. They're running away from you. They're making sure voters know they didn't protect you. The polling was catastrophic. In California, Schiff's approval rating dropped from 58% to 29% in 1 week. A 29-point collapse. 79% of voters, including 62% of Democrats, said they believed Schiff had lied to the public about what he knew regarding Trump and Russia. 71% said he should resign from the Senate. These weren't normal bad numbers. These were career-ending numbers. These were the kind of numbers that meant you couldn't survive a primary challenge, couldn't win re-election, couldn't rebuild your reputation. By week 2, investigative journalists were doing deep dives. The Washington Post published the Schiff dossier, a comprehensive timeline of statements versus briefings. They went through all 227 appearances where Schiff claimed he'd seen evidence, matched each one against the classified briefings he'd attended around that time. The pattern was undeniable and systematic. The Wall Street Journal ran How One Senator Misled a Nation, the Adam Schiff story. They focused on the leaks, the phone records, the pattern of Schiff calling reporters, followed by stories with classified information. They interviewed former FBI officials who'd worked on the leak investigations. The evidence of coordination was overwhelming. Politico did a political obituary, The Collapse of Adam Schiff, How the Man Who Investigated Trump Became the Investigated. They detailed how Schiff had become untouchable in Democratic politics, how media had protected him, how nobody had fact-checked his claims because the information was classified, and how his fall was so complete and so sudden that he'd become a cautionary tale almost overnight. More declassified documents came out as the weeks progressed. Each batch revealed more troubling patterns. Documents showing Schiff had specifically requested certain investigations be opened, knowing they'd generate headlines that would leak to his favorite reporters. Communications with FBI officials who were later fired for misconduct. a list of friendly media contacts who could be relied on to run stories without too much scrutiny. A dossier his office had kept on Republican committee members who questioned him. By week 4, Schiff finally agreed to an interview. Only one network would have him, MSNBC, and even they looked uncomfortable. The host tried to help him. "Senator Schiff, President Trump showed documents that he says contradict your public statements about Russian collusion. How do you respond?" Schiff looked tired, older than he had a month ago. "I think these documents are being taken out of context. Intelligence assessments evolve. What might look like no evidence at one point becomes evidence later as more information comes in." "But, Senator," the host interrupted gently, "your signature is on a briefing from March 2017 that explicitly says the FBI had found no evidence of coordination. And the next day you went on Chuck Todd's show and said you'd seen more than circumstantial evidence. That's not evolution. That's a direct contradiction." Schiff tried his old playbook. "I can't discuss classified information. It's not classified anymore. President Trump declassified it. The whole country has seen it. So, can you explain the contradiction?" Schiff had no good answer. He stumbled through responses about the complexity of intelligence work, about needing full context, about Trump's political motivations. None of it landed. Even the sympathetic MSNBC host looked unconvinced. The interview went viral for all the wrong reasons. Clips of Schiff unable to explain the contradictions, unable to defend the fabricated transcript, unable to address the leak allegations. He looked defeated, finished. 3 months after the press conference, the Senate formally censured Adam Schiff. Censure is rare. It's a formal statement of disapproval voted on by the full Senate. It's not expulsion. He got to keep his seat. But it's a permanent black mark. A statement that the Senate, including many of his own party, believed he'd acted improperly. The vote was 71 to 29. 21 Democrats voted for censure. The resolution cited bringing disrepute upon the Senate through systematic misrepresentation of classified information to the American public, leaking of classified information, fabrication of evidence during impeachment proceedings, and abuse of security clearance for political purposes. Schiff was only the 5th senator in American history to be formally censured. Book deals that had been in the works were canceled. Speaking engagements evaporated. Law firms that had been offering him lucrative positions rescinded their offers. Think tanks that had promised positions distanced themselves. The 51 intelligence officials who'd signed the laptop letter became a scandal of their own. Several of them came forward saying they hadn't known Schiff's office was coordinating the letter. They thought it was an organic statement from concerned former officials. If they'd known it was orchestrated for political purposes, they claimed they wouldn't have signed. John Brennan and James Clapper, the most prominent signers, refused to comment. Their silence was seen as admission. HBO announced a documentary, The Schiff Show: How One Senator Fooled America. It would detail all 227 lies, show the timeline of leaks, and interview intelligence officials who'd watched in horror as their classified briefings were misrepresented. Fox News was producing it, but promised to rely only on declassified documents and on-the-record interviews. 6 months after the press conference, Adam Schiff held a press conference of his own in Los Angeles. He looked diminished. The confidence was gone. The righteous certainty had evaporated. He looked like a man who knew his career was over and was just going through the motions. After much consideration and consultation with my family, I've decided not to seek re-election to the Senate. I've dedicated my life to public service, but I believe it's time to step back and focus on other priorities. The standard politician resignation speech. Spending more time with family. Other priorities. Everyone knew what it meant. He couldn't win. Internal polling showed him losing a primary by 38 points. Better to resign with some dignity than get destroyed in an election. Questions came immediately. Do you regret any of your statements about Russian collusion? Do you dispute the declassified documents? Will you apologize for misleading the public? Schiff gave vague answers, talked about standing by his oversight work, about the importance of holding presidents accountable, about his pride in his service. He didn't apologize, didn't admit wrongdoing, didn't acknowledge the evidence. He just quit and walked away. Katie Porter, a progressive congresswoman from Orange County, announced she'd run for Schiff's seat in the special election. Her announcement was pointed, "California deserves senators who tell the truth, who don't use classified information as a political weapon, who don't fabricate evidence, who don't leak secrets for partisan gain. We can do better." She won the Democratic primary unopposed, won the general election by 31 points. Adam Schiff's Senate career lasted less than 2 years, ended not by an opponent or a scandal in the traditional sense, but by the simple act of declassifying documents that showed he'd spent 8 years lying to the American people. 1 year after the press conference, a journalist caught up with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. "Mr. President, looking back on that press conference with Senator Schiff, do you have any regrets?" Trump was sitting on the patio, enjoying the Florida weather. He looked relaxed, happy. "Regrets? No, none. Had to be done. Some people said you were too harsh, that you destroyed a man's career. I didn't destroy anything. I declassified documents. I showed America what their senator actually knew versus what he told them. He destroyed his own career by lying for 8 years. The declassification, you'd been planning it for a while?" Trump nodded. "Years, since the Russia hoax started. I wanted people to see the truth, but everyone said no. Too sensitive, too classified. Can't do it. Finally got it done. Every briefing, every assessment, everything Schiff saw. And they all said no evidence, all of them. Not one briefing said there was evidence of collusion. Not one. But Schiff went on TV 227 times saying he'd seen evidence. That's not a mistake. That's systematic lying. Do you feel vindicated?" Trump smiled. "I feel like the truth finally came out. Took 8 years. Cost me an impeachment. Cost the country millions of dollars and years of division. But yeah, the truth came out." What should people learn from what happened? Trump thought for a moment. When someone tells you, "Trust me, I've seen classified evidence you can't see," be very, very skeptical. Demand proof. Demand transparency. Because sometimes the person claiming to protect you is actually lying to you. Schiff used his security clearance like a weapon for 8 years. Said he couldn't show us the evidence because it was classified. Perfect cover. No way to fact-check him. No way to prove he was lying. Until I declassified it all and everyone saw he'd been lying the whole time. He looked directly at the camera. The receipts don't lie. They never do. And when you finally see them, the truth is undeniable. The declassified documents became a permanent part of the historical record. Available online, downloadable, verifiable by anyone. Journalism schools started teaching the Schiff case, the importance of verification when officials misrepresent classified information, how reporters should be skeptical of claims about secret evidence, how to check public records against public statements, how one senator fooled the media for 8 years because nobody could access the classified information to fact-check him. Law schools taught it in ethics courses. Abuse of security clearance, the Schiff case. How public officials have a duty to accurately represent classified information. How violating that duty destroys public trust in the intelligence community. How legal doesn't always mean ethical. Intelligence community implemented new protocols. Schiff rules, they were called, though nobody used that name officially. Members of Congress who attend classified briefings now have to certify in writing that they won't misrepresent the contents. Penalties for lying about classified briefings include loss of clearance and committee positions. Congressional reform bill passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. Schiff Accountability Act. Official title was different, but everyone called it that. Created oversight mechanism for members who make public statements contradicting classified briefings. Required declassification review if member repeatedly makes claims that intelligence community says are false. Passed 89-11 in Senate. Adam Schiff was one of the 11 who voted against it. Wikipedia page for Adam Schiff was completely rewritten. Used to lead with his role investigating Trump and leading impeachment inquiries. Now, the first paragraph mentioned documented pattern of misrepresenting classified intelligence and censured by Senate for bringing disrepute through abuse of security clearance. Entire sections on controversies and scandals. Another section on declassified documents contradicting public statements. The laptop suppression, the fabricated transcript, the whistleblower coordination, all documented with citations to the declassified materials. His legacy was no longer the man who stood up to Trump. It was the man who lied about classified information for 8 years and got caught when it was declassified. And the moment that ended his career, the moment that exposed 8 years of lies, became one of the most watched political moments in American history. Not because of drama or conflict or great oratory, but because of something much simpler. Declassified documents showing that what Adam Schiff told America was the opposite of what he'd actually been briefed on, 227 times, with receipts.